Welcome. We've got an exceedingly tight timetable today, so we'll be working very hard to keep it on that timetable. There's the shot clock here, and people will be using bells and things to encourage everybody to stay on time. So today's event is literally broken down into 1 minute intervals, and would ask if at all times you could try and assist us to stay on that timetable. It's with the very greatest of pleasure that we join you here today. On behalf of the board, I'd like to start by thanking the three party leaders for finding the time to join the debate of ideas for Tasmania's future. Today, your Premier, thank you, and thank you Mr Hodgman and thank you Mr McKim. It is most appropriate obviously to welcome our honoured guests today. As the majority of you are in fact honoured guests here, we felt it necessary to extend our welcome in a collective manner today. For temporal reasons, if nothing else, we would have taken the entire hour and a half if we'd given you all your honorifics. So welcome one and all. Today, as you'd all understand, I think is an historic event on so very many levels. It's the first debate of the three leaders in Tasmania's history. It's the first debate that the TCCI has hosted in its 158 years. And it's the first debate to exclusively focus on the economic imperatives for Tasmania's future. So today's debate is being broadcast nationally on Sky Network's APAC, as was the Lions lecture the other day, and it's available free to air with free over the internet. Tasmanians, unfortunately though, have some serious considerations. We face one of two scenarios. Either we could have a robust, sustainable community capitalising its potential advantages in a post-carbon world, or we can become a provincial backwater, increasingly dependent on the rest of the Federation for an ever-decreasing way of life. On behalf of our 2,800 members, the board of the TCCI has determined to pursue the big five priorities into the 2010 state election. And those priorities are stable government to underpin a robust economy, budget sustainability to underwrite business confidence, economic strategy to maximise our competitive advantages, planning reform to encourage investment and unlock up to $500 million a year in gross state product. That's $1,000 per Tasmanian. It would be a massive reform and at almost no cost to government. Energy and climate change policy to harness the export potential of water and renewable energies for our state. Today, our debaters are going to focus on only two of those priorities, and that is budget sustainability and economic strategy. Tasmania leads Australia in the scale and consequence of our demographic challenges. As Richard and I the other day were contemplating today's proceedings over a bowl of noodles and tea in Letitia Street, North Hobart, we were struck when we looked out the window at the old Hobart High, which was determined to be the bright school of our future. Today, the school houses a funeral directory, director's operations, and says very unfortunate things about the future we may face. Business as usual quite clearly cannot be sustained. Failing workforce participation and rapidly increasing cost of supporting our dependent population is exactly like a slow-moving train wreck. We can pretend it's not happening, but it's most certainly happening. Tasmania's GSP would need to grow at 3 times the long-run growth rate if we were to rely on growth alone to meet our ever-increasing cost of government services. And the most rapidly growing dependent population in Australia, Tasmania has no choice to become much more efficient in the delivery of government services in a federation if we're to continue to have a positive future. Unlike in our past, Tasmanian state budgets cannot, as the graph clearly indicates, be the principal driver of of employment and economic development. No government of any colour, whether they were red, blue or green, can use public funds to directly intervene to materially advantage the economy. Government needs to be a facilitator of growth, not the roadblock. And in fact, the 95.8% correlation of the two elements of that graph clearly indicate that the absolute link between a healthy budget and business investment and confidence. A government that was to depend on either tax and spend or debt funding strategies will damage our way of life for years to come. We know this from the painful past experiences. And from this we must conclude, surely, that there's nothing much we can do. Well, in fact, we don't think that's the case at all. Quite the opposite. Enormous social, economic and environmental gain can be achieved by unlocking Tasmania's unique potential. Our comparative underachievement in education means real reform that delivers real outcomes in education and productivity can lead to great advantage for all of us. Private and public sector cooperation promise that infrastructure that we need to unlock our potential can be realised. Taxation and regulatory reform intent on enabling productive private investment has to be brought about. And engendering a future-oriented culture is absolutely key to increasing our propensity to innovate. A sustainable economy is one that meets the needs and the wants of today without undermining those of future generations. These three leaders that we're meeting today will determine whether that future Tasmanians can enjoy a sustainable way of life. So today's great debate keeps alive a 2,500-year-old tradition of debating. Far from the set-piece style of US presidential debates with speeches, the Premier David Bartlett, the Leader of the Opposition Will Hodgman and the Leader of the Greens Nick McKim will address and defend their positions on four essential elements of an economically and socially sustainable Tasmania. Separating and moderating our leaders today, that institution of the Fourth Estate, Tim Cox. To ask the tough questions, we have a panel of business representatives before us. And on bell, whistle and clock, today we have the TCCI's very own numbers man, timekeeper and bouncer, Stephen Reid. So ladies and gentlemen, I ask you to welcome Tim Cox to the stage. May the battle of ideas for Tasmania begin.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome. Lovely to be with you this afternoon, and I should, as is custom, welcome members of Parliament, members of local government, and really quite a lot of people I've pissed off over the years doing my show. Very nice to see you, and that's my taxi waiting out the front when we conclude this afternoon. Now, it's going to be a fairly tightly run program today. What you can see here on David Bartlett's iPhone is a shot clock, and if the designated speaker is still speaking when the shot clock goes off, they won't tell me what it is, but something untoward will happen. So that's the first rule. So the first rule of Fight Club is the shot clock. The other thing is that the three leaders will start with a 2-minute open presentation. We'll then go through a couple of defined topics, and you'll hear a position statement from each, responses and a rebuttal on each. It'll become quite apparent as we go through. I'm not sure if Andrew did, because the three of them are so boisterous in the sheds there, in their satin robes and what have you, with their hangers on and trainers and what have you, that I didn't hear if Andrew asked you to please put your mobile phones on silent at the very least, or turn them off, and if you would do that, that would be great. If not, and I hear one, it's $100 to get it back, and that will be for the ABC Giving Tree, and I thank you in advance for that and for your good attendance and cooperation here this afternoon. So will you please welcome to the stage, first of all, who'll be on the lectern here on my left, your right, the Premier of Tasmania, David Bartlett, ladies and gentlemen. Over here. Okay, I'll think over there.
I think.
Okay, if you're there, that's fine. Would you
Nick's
please
already claimed the lift.
Would you please welcome the man in the middle, the Leader of the Tasmanian Greens, Nick McKim, ladies and gentlemen. And finally, and the man who will in fact be on my left and your right, the Leader of the Liberal Party, would you welcome Will Hodgman. All very friendly for now. All right. So, here we are. Welcome. Thanks for supporting an unusual inaugural event. Just checking backstage, and in case you hadn't noticed, you are in the presence of 4 members of Generation X. So, I'm not sure who's doing the job. Thanks very much. So the winds of change are blowing in that regard, if nothing else. So I hope you enjoy this afternoon. Enjoy your lunch as well, and we will keep it moving. It'll be fairly well paced, and we'll see how this shot clock thing works. As I said, each of the leaders will get 2 minutes for some opening remarks, an introduction, if you like. And the first of those is the Premier, David Bartlett. Premier.